The millionaire almost lost to a male beggar who stops wedding with shocking plan. The grand hall was bursting with crystal chandeliers shimmering like captured stars. Guests dressed in silk and diamonds whispering about the million-dollar fortune on display. Everything spoke of wealth, power, the kind that filled the air with a heavy scent of expensive perfume and champagne. The wedding of Alex Grayson, the city's golden boy, to Vanessa Sinclair was supposed to be flawless. The moment when two glamorous lives merged in front of a sea of cameras and jealous eyes. But then, like a shadow slamming through the glam, a frail boy appeared, clutching a trembling hand at a sealed envelope that could shatter everything. Matthew, skinny as a whippet, each breath labored, eyes haunted and wild, stepping forward like he was carrying the weight of a world nobody else dared to see. The murmurs spiraled into stunned gasps. How did this fragile boy, barely older than a kid, crash the scene? Alex, don't go on. Vanessa, she's not who you think. She has plans for you, deadly plans for the honeymoon. Frozen faces, a shocked silence stretching like a fragile glass ready to break. The bride's bright smile faltered, shadows darkening her eyes. Alex's jaw clenched. Who was this boy daring to throw a bomb in the middle of his perfect day? Then Matthew handed over a letter, his hands shaking so hard his whole body threatened to cave in. The paper was stained, edges frayed, the handwriting unmistakable. It was from his mother, the only family he ever had. Gone now, but her words screamed warnings no one wanted to hear. Beware Vanessa. She wears a mask. She hides a knife. The crowd leaned in. The music stopped. Cameras zoomed in on the crumpled letter, and then back to Matthew's face, pale, defeated, his limbs trembling as exhaustion hit like a wave. Without a word, he collapsed, a thin whisper escaping as he hit the floor. "Call an ambulance," someone shouted, panic ringing out. Amid the chaos, Alex knelt beside the boy, his hands awkward but gentle. Beneath the cold suit and sparkling cufflinks, a strange pull gripped him, a mix of guilt, fear, and something fierce, protective. Here was a boy who'd risked everything to stop a nightmare no one else dared believe. And suddenly, the wedding felt like a distant memory, swallowed by this moment of raw, human fragility. Vanessa's face twisted as security closed in. Her mask slipped. The darkness behind those pretty eyes was real, terrifying. She was led away, cuffed and furious, as whispers of betrayal shot through the crowded room like daggers. Meanwhile, Matthew lay in the back of the ambulance, his mind a storm of pain and old wounds. His past was carved in bruises, screams and empty rooms. A nightmare named Stephen, the man who hurt him most. But despite it all, a fragile hope flickered inside him. A dream to build the Clara Light Institute, a place where broken kids like him could find safety and strength. Could he beat the shadows chasing him? Could he shift from scared to warrior? As sirens wailed, the question hung heavy in the air. Would Matthew's courage ripple through this city's cold heart, or would his scars drag him under forever? And what would happen when Stephen stepped back into his life, like a ghost refusing to vanish? The hall now emptied, silent except for the echoes of what almost broke. A million-dollar wedding, crushed by a boy no one saw coming. But maybe, just maybe, that boy was about to cha. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube has removed their subscriptions without warning. Just take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss out on any exclusive content coming your way. And while you're there, leave that powerful like that helps me a lot with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know all the amazing people who are part of this community. A figure appeared, urgent, frantic. It was a man in a tattered suit, wild eyes darting around in panic. It was Stephen, Matthew's tormentor. The crowd gasped, whispers spread like wildfire. Who was this man, and why did his presence spark such a dark energy? "Get away from that boy," Stephen shouted, pushing past security. The authority figures were taken aback. They'd never seen this level of desperation before. His eyes locked onto Matthew's motionless form, filled with a mix of rage and twisted concern. "Matthew!" Stephen's voice pierced the tension, raw and filled with something the onlookers couldn't quite place. Was it fear? Power? They couldn't tell, but it sent an electric jolt through the already shaken crowd. "Somebody stop him!" someone yelled as panic spiraled. Alex felt the grip of his suit, the heaviness of responsibility pressing against him. How could this happen on a day meant for joy? With each step, Stephen moved closer, and the air felt thick, almost choking. Alex rose to protect Matthew, a fury igniting inside him. "Stay back! You don't get to hurt him anymore." The intensity of his words breached the silence like a thunderclap. Then, with a suddenness that caught everyone off guard, Stephen pulled out a small black device. Panic surged anew. "You need to listen to me. I've got proof. The proof that could change everything." He held up the device, eyes wide, as the crowd leaned in, breaths held in unison. He pressed a button, and an image flickered to life on the nearby screens. Gasps echoed through the hall, eyes darting to the shocking display. It was a grainy video of Vanessa, speaking to someone in secretive tones, her voice laced with venom. "Once I marry him, I won't need to worry. He'll never see it coming." The words hung in the air, a serpent slithering into the hearts of everyone present. The murmurs turned to a tidal wave of disbelief. Vanessa's confidence cracked, her facade crumbling like sandcastles before a rush of sea. Alex's heart raced. The girl he thought he knew was unraveling before his eyes. Lies peeled back like layers of paint from an ancient mural, revealing grotesque truths beneath. Matthew stirred, groaning softly, awakening to a storm that had taken the world by surprise. His eyes flickered open, catching flashes of chaos, confusion everywhere. The weight of the moment crashed upon him like a tsunami. His mother's warnings, burning in his mind, now given shape by Stephen's shocking revelation. Just then, the crowd erupted, chaos spinning in every direction. People shouted, trying to comprehend the unraveling truth. But amidst it all, a deeper question loomed. If Vanessa was a traitor, what of Alex's role in all this? The thoughts twisted sharply, cutting through the frenzy. Stephen, panting, declared, "I'm here to save him and to expose her." With that, he lunged for Matthew, and time felt still, each heartbeat echoing with fraught anxiety. The wedding, the fairy tale, lay in tatters around them. A million dreams reduced to dust. What would they all do next? Would the whispers of shattered trust linger or ignite a deeper fire? And as Matthew faced his past, did he have the strength to rise beyond the darkness that clung to him so tightly? With the bombshells dropped and relationships hanging by threads, the answers felt as elusive as shadows, lingering just out of reach. In that tangled moment between chaos and revelation, the entire narrative shifted, leaving tremors of uncertainty in its wake. The wedding hall buzzed with shock, every breath caught in a collective gasp. Eyes darted from Vanessa to Stephen, the truth unfolding in chaos. But before anyone could process the gravity of the moment, Matthew struggled to sit up, his voice weak yet insistent. "No, don't listen to him," he gasped, a whirlwind of emotion flickering through him. "Truth is twisted," Stephen yelled, desperate hands lifting the device like it was a banner of hope. "You need to see." Then suddenly, the moment shattered. Light blazed, colors swirling. A piercing sound filled the air, drowning everyone's cries. An explosion echoed. A blinding flash emerged from the far corner of the hall. a cacophony of panic erupting. The crowd, stunned and breathless, stumbled back, instinctively ducking and covering their heads. Chunks of debris and glittering crystals crashed down, scattering like dark rain across the joyous ruins. Chaos erupted. Screams ricocheted through the air, drowning out everything else. Amid the turmoil, Alex dove, instinctively grabbing Matthew, shielding him from the flying shards of shattered dreams. "Stay down," he shouted, voice hoarse, heart racing. Matthew's face reflected confusion and terror, every heartbeat echoing like a drum in his ears. Outside the hall, sirens wailed, mixing with cries of horror. The weight of the walls around them felt crushing, reality spinning like a topsy-turvy ride gone wrong. It was pure survival. As the dust began to settle, time felt suspended. But where there once was chaos, now there was something else. Heavy silence. The crowd was frozen, eyes wide, hearts trembling. Then from behind the wreckage a figure emerged. A woman. Drenched in soot, her long hair disheveled but eyes blazing. It was Clara, Matthew's mother, thought to be long gone. "Mom!" Matthew's voice broke, disbelief pouring from his lips, scrambling to rise. How was she here? Fear morphed into something deeper, a longing, an answer to the shadows that had chased him. Clara stepped closer, panic in her eyes shifting to fierce resolve. "You shouldn't have come here, Matthew. It's not safe." Her voice trembled, but remained steady, cutting through the stunned atmosphere like a knife. "What do you mean it's not safe?" Alex's voice was firm, protective instincts flaring. "What's going on?" But Clara didn't answer. Instead, she looked over her shoulder, eyes darkening as she scanned the room, knowing dangers would come. "I've made mistakes. I thought I could protect you. But now," her words caught in her throat. A heavy weight hung in the air like smoke. The crowd shifted nervously, whispers of uncertainty and betrayal swirling. "She can't be real," someone gasped. "Wasn't she dead?" Minutes felt like years as the truth loomed over them like a storm cloud, sinister and foreboding. Then, as if conjured by the very tension in the room, the emergency lights flickered. The panic surged, arms reaching out, voices rising to a frenzy. Alex felt the tension coil tighter around him, the fabric of the moment fraying at the seams. "Get out!" Stephen screamed, pushing forward. "She's here to ruin everything." But Clara's gaze snapped to him, eyes fierce. "No, I'm here to save him." All eyes turned to Matthew, who now stood at the precipice of understanding, heart racing. Torn between worlds, he felt the invisible strings pulling him in all directions. Love, betrayal, fear, it all surged through him like wildfire. "Who am I supposed to trust?" he finally choked out, voice breaking, despair pooling in the pit of his stomach. The very ground beneath him felt like ash, ready to crumble. As Clara reached out for him, Stephen stepped closer, desperation etched in his features. "Listen to me. She's been lying about everything." The air crackled with tension, and in that moment the ground shook. The wedding, the truth, their lives, it all felt suspended in disbelief. With so much at stake and hearts pounding like war drums, every option seemed fraught with danger. In that tangled moment, one question lingered. Who was the real enemy, and could they all survive the unveiled darkness lurking ahead? The air was thick with tension, every eye focused on the unfolding chaos. Matthew stood at the center, torn between his mother's fierce urgency and the desperate accusations flying from Stephen. "Who am I supposed to trust?" he cried out, the weight of uncertainty pressing down on him like a suffocating blanket. Clara reached out again, her face a mix of panic and resolve. "Matthew, please, you're in danger. We have to go." Her hands trembled, but her eyes burned with determination. And just like that, the room held its breath, hung in the balance between truth and betrayal. Alex felt the urgency in his bones. What danger? From whom? He glanced back at Vanessa, her face contorting in fear and rage. She fumbled backward, seeking a way out, but the truth was unraveling too fast for her to hide. Then, like a clap of thunder, the room shook. An ominous roar echoed from the back, and the doors burst open. A figure rushed in, disheveled, chaotic. It was a drone, whirring like a mechanical hornet, its camera gliding through the air, capturing every fragile moment. The crowd gasped. Stephen's eyes widened in horror. "No! Get that thing out of here!" he roared, but it was too late. The drone had locked onto Clara, zooming in closer, the lens glinting with a cold, merciless shine. "What's happening?" Matthew shouted, panic twisting his gut. Clara stepped in front of him, a protective instinct kicking in, her body a shield. The drone hovered ominously, then emitted a low buzz, as if anticipating something monumental. It then projected a shocking image onto the wall. An intimate video. Grainy but unmistakable. Matthew's heart dropped. It showcased Clara, but not as he remembered. The woman he loved and longed for appeared in a meeting, accompanied by shadowy figures, discussing plans woven in deceit. "Once we have him, the real power will be ours." Her voice echoed through the hall, each word striking like a gavel in a courtroom. Gasps rippled through the crowd, horror painting every face. Matthew's legs felt like jelly. No, this can't be. The truth he thought he knew began to disintegrate, like dust beneath his fingers. "Matthew, listen!" Clara's voice shook with urgency, but confidence faltered in her eyes. "I didn't mean to." "She's been lying," Stephen shouted, breathless with revelation. "She's not your mother. She's the reason you've suffered." Blindsiding shock snapped through Matthew's core as the room plunged into chaos. Disbelief clashed with raw emotion. "What are you saying?" He couldn't help but plead, fighting back against the shuddering truth. But Stephen wasn't finished. "She's been using you, Matthew, all along. You were just a pawn in her twisted game." His piercing gaze locked onto Clara, who stumbled back, her facade cracked and shattered. "I swear, I wanted to protect you," Clara's voice quivered. You were never meant to find out like this. I wanted you to be safe." Tears glistened in her eyes, held back by a thin veil of desperation. As the voices clashed, confusion morphed into rebellion. "Get away from him!" Alex yelled, stepping forward, muscles tense, as if defending against an unseen enemy. He hadn't just been protecting Matthew, he was ready to fight for truth, whatever that truth was. But just then, as the video flickered to life, the entire hall plunged into darkness. System short-circuited, lights dying one by one. Panic swelled. Shadows danced as screams echoed. And in that pitch-black moment of hysteria, something shifted. A piercing scream cut through the chaos, one that didn't belong to anyone present. All eyes turned back to Clara, whose face was now illuminated by the glow of the drone's fading light. A horrifying revelation dawning. A knife was plunged into her side, a glint of betrayal in her eyes as she collapsed. "Mom." Matthew's raw scream shattered the night, reverberating through the stunned crowd. And in the heart of that violent collapse, amid the thick smoke of betrayal, he realized everything had twisted, and nothing would ever be the same again. Who had betrayed her? Who was left to trust now, in a world where truths and lies danced hand in hand? The questions echoed louder than any scream, resonating deep within as darkness consumed them whole. Matthew stood frozen, his heart racing as Clara collapsed to the ground. Panic surged through him, twisting into knots of fear. "Mom, no!" His voice cracked, desperation spilling into the silence that followed. Chaos surrounded them, but all he could see was her. The bright red of the blood blooming against her white dress, the horror on her face as she fought for breath. Alex was beside him, shock written all over his features, hands mechanically reaching toward Clara. But there was no time. "Someone help!" Alex yelled, his voice echoing against the sudden stillness that had fallen over the crowd. People stepped back, eyes wide, afraid to approach. The air had grown thick with disbelief. Matthew knelt beside his mother, trembling, trying to assess what was happening. "What's going on? Why are you here? Why did you come?" Tears blurred his vision, his heart a heavy stone in his chest. Clara's eyes flickered, and for a moment it seemed she might speak. But before any words could break free, the drone whirred back to life. It spun around, capturing everything, every anguished face, every whispered accusation. The chaotic clamor of the crowd swirled around them, drowning out even his thoughts. Then it happened. With an explosive jolt, the drone shot down toward the floor, fragments of metal flying. It smashed into the ground, exploding in a shower of sparks. Screams erupted anew. The thick smoke from the drone enveloped the room, swirling like a ghostly fog. In that instant of blinding chaos, Clara took a shuddering breath, and her eyes widened with something Matthew couldn't place: fear, resolve, or perhaps something deeper. "Matthew," she gasped, voice barely above a whisper, "you need to know." He leaned closer, hanging on her every word, desperate to understand. "Know what?" But before she could respond, a loud crash echoed. Another figure burst through the crowd, a man wearing a hood, dark and ominous, his face hidden in the shadows. "Get away from her!" he shouted, his voice low and menacing. Panic surged again, and the crowd pressed back as this new threat bore down on them. Alex squared his shoulders, stepping protectively in front of Matthew. "Who the hell are you?" But the man didn't answer. Instead, he pointed a gloved finger at Clara. "You were supposed to stay hidden." The accusation cracked through the air, sharp and piercing, stirring something deep within Matthew. The air felt electric, charged with emotion and confusion. "Who are you?" Clara's voice was stronger now, defiance flickering in her eyes. "Why are you here?" But even as she spoke, fear slithered behind her words. "You're part of something bigger, Clara," he replied, voice dripping with disdain. "And you can't escape it. None of us can." His gaze locked onto Matthew, and suddenly everything unraveled. "What do you mean?" Matthew's heart thundered, ice settling in his veins. Suddenly, Clara's face transformed, her expression shifting from fear to something dark. "Matthew, listen to me." But her voice held a different tone now, layered with secrets. "It's not just about us." And in that moment, as the world spun around him, he felt a cold flood of realization. Trust shattered, truth twisted into a dark web of manipulation and lies. Clara wasn't just a mother fighting to protect her son. She was a player in a much larger game. Matthew's breath hitched in his throat as he looked from Clara to the hooded figure, confusion morphing into betrayal. Everything he thought he knew slipped away like sand through fingers. His mother, his protector, wasn't just what he believed. As the confrontation swirled, he felt an urgent need to escape, to find clarity in the midst of chaos. But how could he when the ground beneath him felt like it was crumbling? "What's really happening?" he shouted, voice breaking, eyes darting between them. Suddenly, Clara flinched in pain, her hand clutching her side. "You'll find the truth. Just follow the signs." The weight of her words hung like a noose, squeezing the air from his lungs. Time slowed as she slumped further, disappearing behind the crowd in a whirl of red and black. And all at once, clarity hit. The crowd, the chaos, it was all a distraction. Something larger lurked in the shadows. And now Matthew stood at the edge, caught in the tide of secrets, wondering if he would ever find his way back to solid ground. The question left hanging in the air, suffocating. What truth awaited him, and who could he trust in a world where shadows reigned? The chaos seemed to stretch on forever, echoes of panic swirling around like dust in the air. Matthew's heart beat wildly in his chest as he knelt beside his mother, fear constricting around him like a vice. Clara's eyes shimmered with a mix of urgency and something darker, but before he could process the weight of her words, the crowd gasped anew. The hooded figure, still looming like a shadow, took a step closer, eyes igniting with something sharp and dangerous. "You think you know what's happening?" he taunted, voice a low growl. "You don't even know the half of it." Matthew felt a chill crawl down his spine. "What do you mean?" he choked out. Questions poured into his mind like a raging torrent, each one more desperate than the last. Suddenly, Clara's expression shifted, the confusion in her eyes replaced by steely resolve. "No, don't listen to him," she cried, her voice rising with a fierce protectiveness that sent shivers through Matthew. But urgency twisted into tension as the figure merely chuckled, dark amusement dancing on his lips. "You really don't want to know the truth, Clara," he said, leaning forward, menacing. "You'll regret uncovering the past." With a flick of his wrist, the darkness seemed to swell around him, and in that moment, a bright flash erupted, blinding everyone for just a heartbeat. When the light faded, reality shifted in an instant. "Look!" someone screamed, pointing to the floor. At their feet lay a crumpled piece of paper, glowing faintly with an eerie light. Confusion morphed into tension as Matthew's stomach dropped. It looked ancient, scribbles barely legible, but all he could feel was the weight of destiny pressing down on him. Clara's breathing quickened. "Don't!" she yelled, panic lacing her words. But something compelled Matthew. He reached for it, heart pounding like a drum. As he did, the shadows around the mysterious figure coiled tighter, releasing a crackling energy that filled the air with tension. The moment Matthew's fingers brushed the paper, a surge of images flooded his mind, fleeting memories of laughter, of warmth. His childhood, faded but vibrant, and then darkness, faces blurred, shadows twisted, gasping breaths, the pain of betrayal washed over him. "Stop!" Clara shouted, but it was too late. With an electric pulse, the paper shot from his hand, floating in the air, illuminating the chaos with a brilliant glow. All eyes turned to it, breath caught in disbelief. Within moments, the image solidified, projecting into reality before them. A scene swirling with vibrant colors. A child's laughter echoed, then morphed into a chilling scream. It was a vision of Matthew, walking hand in hand with Clara. But it was different. Their surroundings shifted, the lights stark and sterile, a hospital setting. The hooded man's laughter morphed into a harsh cackle, intertwining with Matthew's horror. "Now do you see? You were never meant to be here." He stepped closer, energy sparking around him like a live wire. "You're the key, Matthew. You don't even belong to your mother." Shock crashed over Matthew, his heart stuttering. A thunderous silence fell, the words sinking deep into the cracks of his soul. "What?" he whispered, disbelief clawing at his throat. "Your real mother." The figure prowled forward, each word dripping with venom. "She's not who you think either. You were adopted, Matthew. You were meant for something bigger, a pawn in a game played by powers you will never understand." The revelation thudded in his chest like a drum, leaving him breathless. The crowd murmured in horror, eyes flitting between Matthew and Clara, confusion morphing into disappointment, betrayal etched into every face. "Matthew," Clara's voice trembled, innocent eyes widening in desperation. "No, it's a lie. I adopted you because I loved you. I've always loved you." But the words felt thin now, fraying at the edges. As realization set in, a deeper darkness loomed, swirling around him like a storm. "It can't be," he gasped, reality shattering like glass. With every heartbeat, the room filled with whispers, revealing the ripples of secrets long buried. He felt the ground shift, his identity cracking under the weight of the truth. With the weight of a truth too heavy to bear, Matthew stood teetering on the edge of everything he believed. And just like that, the world tilting around him as trust dissolved into shadows, he made a choice. How would he uncover the weaving of the lies? And was he ready to confront whatever darkness awaited him on the other side? The tension hung thick in the air, leaving everyone grasping for answers that danced just out of reach. Matthew stood there, heart racing, the weight of Clara's words pounding in his ears. Everything he thought was real felt like quicksand, shifting beneath him. I'm not your son?" His voice is barely a whisper, filled with disbelief. The hooded figure smirked, enjoying the chaos he'd unleashed. Around them, the crowd shifted, faces turning from shock to horror, whispers rising like a storm. "No, it can't be true," someone shouted. "Clara, tell him it's not true." Fear rippled through the throng, pulsing with anxiety. "Matthew, please!" Clara's voice cracked, desperation spilling from her as she fought to regain control. "I love you! You're my son!" But the words felt like daggers, twisting in the air, full of confusion and hurt. Before Matthew could respond, the hooded figure, seemingly empowered by the chaos, stepped forward and raised a gloved hand. "You don't want to know what's really at stake, Clara. Your son is part of a plan much bigger than either of you can comprehend." Everything felt unreal. The walls of the grand hall seemed to close in like a claustrophobic cage. Shadows danced as if they were alive, echoing Matthew's turmoil. No one knew who to trust anymore. Then an unexpected thing happened. The lights flickered, then went out completely, plunging them into darkness. Gasps filled the air, panic rippling through the crowd like an electric charge. "Mom!" Matthew screamed, lost in the sudden blackness. "Where are you?" But silence hung like a lead weight, heavy and suffocating. An eerie stillness enveloped them. Then a loud crash echoed through the space, followed by a dry whisper cutting through the tension. "It's time to make a choice, Matthew." All eyes turned toward a new figure emerging in the shadows. An older woman with striking silver hair, her features sharp and defined. She looked familiar, yet foreign. Fear rolled in Matthew's stomach. "Who are you?" he demanded, heart racing. The crowd shifted uneasily, eyes wide as they took in this unexpected newcomer. With every step, the room felt charged, raw tension humming between them. "I'm your real mother," she said, voice low but fierce, "and you have to listen to me." Matthew's breath hitched. "What? So it's true?" His mind spiraled. "I've been lied to my whole life?" "Not just you," she replied, piercing eyes boring into his soul. "You're part of a legacy, a bloodline stronger than anything you've ever known." Her words dripped with urgency, every syllable pulling him deeper into confusion. And just like that, without warning, she waved her hand. The air shimmered, and flashes of images crashed through Matthew's mind. Not just memories, but visions. Scenes of secret meetings in smoke-filled rooms, whispers of power. "Your life was a tapestry woven with secrets," the woman continued. "You have the potential to change everything." She gestured to the hooded figure, whose eyes widened in shock. "And he knows too much. He's the reason you've been hunted." The tension snapped, a tight wire ready to break. The crowd murmured, swept away by the overwhelming revelation. Opinions whipped through like winds through trees, some gasping in empathy, others recoiling in fear. "No!" Clara cried, suddenly regaining her voice. "You can't just show up and—" Matthew turned to her, confusion flooding his thoughts. "Is it true, Mom? Is this why everything has happened? Why everyone wants me?" "Stop! You don't understand," Clara pleaded. But the words felt hollow now. Each second stretched painfully, reality twisting perilously close to breaking. The woman stepped closer, intensity sharpening her gaze. You have to make a choice right now, Matthew. Stay hidden and let them control you, or embrace who you truly are. Matthew's heart thundered, torn between the familiar warmth of Clara and the chilling call of the woman who claimed to be his true mother. The weight pressed down, and in that moment, a singular thought blared like thunder through his mind. What kind of power lay within him? Everything hung on the brink, trust dangling by a thread, as Matthew's thoughts spun wildly. He could feel the world shift under his feet, reality no longer solid. "What do I do?" he whispered, staring into the unknown. The choice was upon him, a path lined with shadows, each step more dangerous. And behind it all, a question pulsed, relentless. Who was the real enemy? And was he ready to confront the truth buried deep within? Matthew stood there, heart racing, the weight of Clara's words pounding in his ears. Everything he thought was real felt like quicksand, shifting beneath him. I'm not your son?" His voice was barely a whisper, filled with disbelief. The hooded figure smirked, enjoying the chaos he'd unleashed. Around them, the crowd shifted, faces turning from shock to horror, whispers rising like a storm. "No, it can't be true," someone shouted. "Clara, tell him it's not true." Fear rippled through the throng, pulsing with anxiety. "Matthew, please." Clara's voice cracked, desperation spilling from her as she fought to regain control. "I love you. You're my son." But the words felt like daggers, twisting in the air, full of confusion and hurt. Before Matthew could respond, the hooded figure, seemingly empowered by the chaos, stepped forward and raised a gloved hand. "You don't want to know what's really at stake, Clara. Your son is part of a plan much bigger than either of you can comprehend." Everything felt unreal. The walls of the grand hall seemed to close in, like a claustrophobic cage. Shadows danced, as if they were alive, echoing Matthew's turmoil. No one knew who to trust anymore. Then an unexpected thing happened. The lights flickered, then went out completely, plunging them into darkness. Gasps filled the air, panic rippling through the crowd like an electric charge. "Mom!" Matthew screamed, lost in the sudden blackness. "Where are you?" But silence hung like a lead weight, heavy and suffocating. An eerie stillness enveloped them. Then a loud crash echoed through the space. Something heavy slammed against the ground, followed by a dry whisper that sliced through the tension. "It's time to make a choice, Matthew." All eyes turned toward a new figure emerging in the shadows, an older woman with striking silver hair, her features sharp and defined. She looked familiar, yet foreign. Fear curled inside Matthew's stomach. "Who are you?" he demanded, heart racing. The crowd shifted uneasily, eyes wide as they took in this unexpected newcomer. With every step, the room felt charged, raw tension humming between them. "I'm your real mother," she said, voice low but fierce, "and you have to listen to me." Matthew's breath hitched. "What? So it's true?" His mind spiraled. "I've been lied to my whole life?" "Not just you," she replied, piercing eyes boring into his soul. "You're part of a legacy, a bloodline stronger than anything you've ever known." The crowd murmured, swept away by the overwhelming revelation. "No," Clara cried, suddenly regaining her voice. "You can't just show up and—" But before she could finish, the lights flickered back on, bright and blinding. The room gasped. Everyone blinked in confusion as reality struck them again. And that's when it happened. A loud bang erupted from the side, a gunshot ricocheting through the hall. Time froze. Clara's eyes widened, hand flying to her chest as she staggered back, blood blossoming against her white dress in a vivid pattern. "Mom!" Matthew screamed, eyes wide with horror. The room erupted into chaos as screams and shouts filled the air, bodies scrambling, searching for safety. Clara crumpled to the floor, vision fading. "Matthew," she gasped, eyes full of pain, but also something else, something dark. "You have to run. You need to leave now." But Matthew couldn't move. He felt a cold grip around his heart. The world around him was chaos, but his focus was on her, on the woman he thought was his mother, dying before his eyes. The hooded figure, now revealed to be a member of the very organization hunting him, turned toward Matthew, a smirk plastered on his face. "You see, Matthew, this is why you were never supposed to find out. The truth is more dangerous than you know." Then, just as the crowd surged forward, desperate to help, the older woman, the one who claimed to be his real mother, whispered something that struck like a lightning bolt. "You have the power to stop it. Your blood, it's what they want." Power? Blood? Questions flooded through his mind as chaos swirled. The walls felt like they were closing in, and Clara gasped one last time, a wave of finality washing over the room. As everything erupted into screams and confusion, Matthew's world spiraled. Who was he really? What truth lay ahead? He could feel the shadows tightening around him, the consequences of choices yet to be made lurking just beneath the surface. A storm ready to break. And in that moment, Matthew understood. He was standing on the precipice of something vast, something powerful. The choices he would make next could ripple through every life in the room, forever changing the landscape of the battle he never knew he was part of. Matthew stood there, breathless, just watching Clara as she crumpled to the floor. The scene was frozen in his mind, panic clawing at the edges of his sanity. Around him, people shouted. Some tried to rush toward Clara, but the chaos spun wildly like a cyclone. "Mom, stay with me." The words tore from his throat, raw and desperate. Clara's hand went limp, her eyes flickering. "Please, don't leave me." But as he knelt beside her, the hooded figure stepped forward, face twisted with triumph. "You see, Matthew, this is the cost of knowing too much." A ripple of dread raced through the crowd, faces shifting from shock to fear. Eyes darted in every direction, looking for the next danger. Then, just when it felt like the world was crumbling, an electrical crackle filled the air, snapping everyone to attention. Suddenly, the shadows shifted, and a blinding light burst through the hall, slicing through the gloom. A beam ricocheted off the walls, illuminating faces twisted in confusion. A voice boomed through the chaos, powerful and commanding. "Everyone, step back." Every eye turned toward the entrance as a group of figures marched in, military uniforms glinting under the chandeliers. They moved with precision, authority hanging heavy in the air. Matthew's heart raced. Who were these people? Before anyone could react, the lead soldier pushed to the forefront, gaze laser-focused on the hooded figure. "You are under arrest for conspiracy against the state." Gasps erupted, whispers slicing through the crowd like knives. Arrest? For what? Confusion turned to chaos again as people scrambled backward, hearts pounding. "What?" Matthew's voice broke through the noise. "What is happening?" But then, in that moment of confusion, everything shifted. The soldier pulled off his helmet, revealing a familiar face that crushed down on Matthew's heart. A face he hadn't seen in years. His long-lost father, Robert. "Dad?" The words slipped out in disbelief. Matthew's heart thudded painfully. Memories crashed back. The laughter, the warmth, the day he'd been taken. "Yes, Matthew, it's me," Robert said, voice thick with emotion. "I've been searching for you." Shock held Matthew captive. Everything he thought he knew splintered. The man he had longed for, the one who had disappeared, was right here amidst the fragments of his world. But then Clara gasped, her eyes widening. "No, this can't be. If you're here—" Her voice trailed off, fear clawing at her features. Then it hit him like a freight train. "Clara, you knew." Matthew's anger boiled over, tears of confusion spilling down his cheeks. "You knew who I really was." Clara shook her head violently. "It's not what you think. I did it to protect you." But the truth was unfurling like a dark storm, flooding the space with weighty revelations. Matthew felt the air thicken, uncertainty crackling like electricity. Protect me? By lying to me my whole life? Robert stepped closer, gaze steady. "I can explain everything, Matthew. But first, we need to get you away from here." Suddenly, sirens wailed outside, echoing like a warning bell, intertwining with the chaos already present. The crowd shifted uneasily, the tension thick enough to slice. Just as Matthew began to process this wild turn, the hooded figure let out a chilling laugh. "Oh, how naive," he mocked. "You really think you can control him?" "Matt," Clara shouted, panic ringing through her voice. "Get back!" But before he could react, the hooded figure lunged forward, shoving Matthew aside. A loud bang echoed through the hall, followed by a strange sizzling noise. In an instant, the world erupted. The roof trembled, dust raining down as a blast went off. People screamed, scurrying for cover as a shockwave pushed everyone back. Matthew's heart raced in the aftermath, everything spinning out of control. When the air cleared, an eerie silence fell. Matthew lay on the ground, confusion swirling. Just then, he felt a sharp pain in his leg, a coldness creeping in. As he glanced down, horror gripped his chest. A shard of metal was embedded deep into his thigh. No, 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 no. Panic surged like flames, looking from his father to Clara. But the real shock rippled through the room when Matthew caught sight of the hooded figure. In the haze of chaos, the darkness peeled away, revealing the face of someone he recognized. His heart plummeted. "Why?" he gasped, feeling the walls close in. You were my friend." The betrayal hung heavy, each breath hitching as he tried to piece it all together. Who had he trusted? What had he really been a part of? The shadows of his life closed in, leaving him teetering on the brink of everything he thought he knew. "Matthew," his father whispered, tears glistening in his eyes. "Stay with me. We'll find the truth together." But the darkness loomed larger, leaving a question hanging heavy in the air. Was anyone who they seemed? And could he even trust his own blood? Matthew felt the world spinning as he knelt next to Clara, her eyes glazing over. No, no, no. Panic churned in his stomach, every beat of his heart a reminder of everything they fought for. This was not how it was supposed to end. "Stay with me." His voice cracked, trembling hands reaching for her. But her breath hitched, her gaze fluttering. Desperation clawed at his throat. He looked at Robert, who was frozen, eyes wide with shock. "Get her help," Matthew shouted, voice raw with urgency. "On it!" One of the soldiers rushed forward, but the chaos around them was suffocating. The sound of sirens grew louder, mixing with the cries in the crowd. Panic surged, turning the scene into a frenzy. The hooded figure laughed. "You still don't get it, do you? You're all part of a bigger game. This isn't just about you, Matthew." In that moment, something snapped inside Matthew. "But it is! I won't let you take anyone else from me." With every ounce of strength, he pushed himself to rise, a fire igniting in his chest. The crowd held its collective breath, caught between confusion and fear. Matthew turned to his father, who was now crouching beside him. "What do we do? We have to get out of here, before it's too late." Robert's hands clasped Matthew's shoulders, grounding him. As the soldiers rushed toward Clara, Matthew could feel the shadows closing in. The truth, as tangled as it was, still shimmered with a thread of clarity. He needed to focus. "What do you know about my bloodline?" he shouted across the crowd, aiming at the hooded figure. "What do I have that you want?" The figure smirked. "They will come for you, if they don't find you first." A burst of anger shot through Matthew. "I won't be your pawn." He felt the weight of his feelings, the rage, the helplessness, morphing into strength. Then Clara gasped, bringing everyone back to earth. The soldiers lifted her gently, but the glimmer of hope was dimmed by dread. Matthew's heart raced. He couldn't lose her. Not now. Just when it felt like despair was taking hold, Robert gripped Matthew tightly, pulling him in. "We'll find the answers together. You're not alone." They locked eyes, a deep surge of understanding wrapping around them. That was the moment Matthew knew the chaos wouldn't claim him. He would rise, fight back against the web of lies that had surrounded him. Just then, the room shimmered with the sharp sound of breaking glass. A final blow to the darkness birthed the realization. For every confrontation he faced, every shadow that loomed, he was equipped for the fight. "Let's go," Robert shouted, and they dashed toward the exit, breaking through the panic, pushing through the confusion. The crowd followed suit, urgency igniting every step. With every ounce of fury coursing through him, Matthew prepared himself for whatever came next. He was no longer just running from danger. He was chasing after the truth. As they stepped outside into chaos, Matthew felt the weight lift just a bit. They had faced the darkness and emerged on the other side, but questions burned still. Who else was out there? What awaited him in the shadows? The battle was only beginning. The sun rose over the embattled city as they stepped into the light, chasing the dawn. And in that moment of resolve, as the weight of the world pressed against his shoulders, Matthew vowed to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. But the path ahead remained shrouded in mystery. Did you love this story? Then this is the moment to show your support. You must subscribe now to the channel, so you never miss the next exclusive stories coming your way. Smash that like button now. Your support feeds the algorithm and helps us grow. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. And don't wait one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to know this ending. Only true fans understand the power of supporting the channel.